Shabbat Shalom, everybody. I spoke to you last week, and when I spoke, I talked about how I was having a hard time. Now, there's nothing unusual or special about that. Many of us are having a hard time, and many much harder than me. But I felt like I had reached some kind of breaking point with this layering of crisis upon crisis, and just in witnessing the horror that human beings can inflict upon one another. Something just snapped in me, and I began to feel hopeless. So I want to this week share a piece of Torah that I came across this week that helped me a lot, and that gave me back some hope, some strength. I was doing some learning with the Ikar Men's Circle this week, a really sacred space in our community. And so to prepare, I started looking through the Parsha. And I have to say, it's still incredible to me how often it feels like the cycle of our weekly Torah reading speaks exactly to the moment. I know you think that rabbis have this magic where they make that happen, but I really think that the magic is in the Torah herself. Because what did I find in this week's Parsha? But Moses, the great prophet of Israel, in a moment of deep personal crisis. It's not unusual for Moses to be in crisis, but what is unusual is that this time Moses loses it. He reaches a breaking point and something snaps, and he begins to shout at God, to unleash a tirade of fury. This servant of God, this humble man, suddenly is saying, Lama hareota lavdecha. Why have you done such wrong to your servant? Do you not like me? I cannot do this anymore, he says. And then he says, Ve'im kacha atoseli hargeni naharog. If this is what you're going to do to me, then please just kill me. I want to show this to you, and I can do that because it's just astonishing that this line right here is in our Torah. Moses asks God to please kill him in the Torah, va'al ere barati, so that I don't have to see my own wretchedness anymore. So what brings Moses to this point, and why now? Because this job has never been easy. He had to stand up to a dictator. He had to lead over 1 million people out into the desert while they constantly complained and rebelled and doubted him and rejected everything he had to say, built a golden calf. So why now? Well, we're in chapter 11 of the book of Numbers, Bamidbar, and that chapter begins with more complaining. And then a fire breaks out, and Moses has to pray for it to die down. And then when it does, immediately the people start crying about how hungry they are. Even though they have the manna from heaven, they want the food they had back in Egypt. They want to go back to Egypt. So there's a lot going on, but what was it that pushed Moses over the edge? Was it that layering of crisis upon crisis? Or was it that the crisis wasn't really new, that it had always been there, and this was just the latest episode? Just the last straw. It's hard to say what exactly Moses felt that day, but one phrase sticks out at me. The paragraph that takes us into Moses's breakdown begins as follows: V'yishma Moshe et ha'am boche. And Moses heard the people crying. Moses heard them crying. Everyone, it says, in their tent, weeping. And Moses has heard a lot from the people before, and he's heard a lot from God before and from Pharaoh, but this he's never heard. The people crying, not complaining, not raging, but just crying. And I think we should stay with that phrase for a while. V'yishma Moshe ta'am boche. And Moses heard the people crying. And it changed him. It cut into him and called him into action, into resistance. That is what a true leader does, what our greatest leader ever did. Listens to the suffering of his people, takes it in, and responds to it. And maybe that's what we should all be doing a little of right now during this time of crisis, is listening to the cries of those who are suffering. Have you heard the people crying? Because for most of us, when the space is frightening, we fill it with a lot of talking. But maybe this should be a time of listening, Now, that much takes us into Moses' crisis point, his darkest hour. But I said that this passage gave me hope. So why is that? The hope I found in God's response, because Moses' crisis is complex, but the solution offered is rather straightforward. God says, okay, I get it. Gather 70 elders around you, and they will carry the burden of the people with you. Right? You will not carry it alone. We become aware of the problem by listening. And then the solution begins when we gather, when we come together, when we share the burden of the crises before us. No one of us can carry it alone. And I realize that has been my solution. My source of strength through all of this has been you, my people, my community, my Angelinos, my family, my teachers, and my students. What a gift it has been to be able to study Torah with you through all of this. What a gift to gather in prayer with you. What a gift to gather in protest with you. We need each other, not just in tangible ways, but we need that human connection. It carries us. It awakens us, and hopefully it changes us. And it isn't just a comfort, though it is that. It's also a critical part of the solution, that human connection. Our central principle of justice, of affirming human dignity, is the Tzelem Elokim, the image of God that is in every person. And that means that every life is sacred because every person is sacred, because every person is like God in some way. But it also means that every person is like me in some way, is like you in some way. We're all connected. We share that stamp of divinity. So let's gather together. Let's stay together. Let's carry each other through this as we always have.